Hey everybody, welcome to American Idol Unaired. I'm your host Bennett Shear, and we are very excited today to welcome another singer from season 21 that you didn't get to see, Veronica Hoxie.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited to meet you. You were just saying this is your first podcast, so is it thrilling to do something new, kind of different?
Yeah, this is really exciting. I mean, especially to be on a podcast for something that I have wanted to do for so long, like American Idol. This is really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of new things, unless, I could be wrong if you ever done another singing show or any television things before Idol?
No, my the closest thing I guess that would come to like TV would be pageants, I guess. I grew up doing pageants as a way to pay for school. I was Miss Anchorage, which I live in Anchorage, Alaska. I was Miss Alaska Teen USA. But as far as like going on television and like talent competitions, no, this is completely new.
Okay, wow. Well, Veronica, tell me a little bit more about you from where you grew up and just getting into music before you made it on American Idol. I'd love to get to know you.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Alaska. Actually, I said Anchorage. It's like a suburb of Anchorage called Eagle River. And I have 14 siblings. I'm lucky number seven, so the middle child of such a large family. And I grew up doing pageants to pay for school for college because I have such a large family. I needed a way to do that. And sort of my story is that at 16 years old, my dad was in a really bad car accident and broke his back in three different places. And through surgeries, he had to go through several surgeries, and he actually got a really bad infection from one of those surgeries and almost died. And at this point, my mom had to go back to work, and I was having to raise my six younger siblings. And I kind of had to put the things that I loved as a child and as a teenager on hold because I had to take care of my dad and my family. And so that was kind of a time when I was pretty active in the pageant world and I was writing music and just getting started with learning the guitar. And I was kind of forced to just kind of put that on hold. And from there, when my dad was doing better, I graduated high school. I went straight to college and I got married young and had kids young. And it kind of got to a point with like COVID, actually. I have two kids, and my daughter was born in January of 2020. And that was just a really hard time for me, kind of realizing what's important to me in life and what are things that bring me joy. And so I had my daughter in 2020, and I was just like, wow, like life is short. All these people are dying from COVID, and it was scary and a huge like perspective shift. And so I wanted to make sure that I started like taking care of me and doing things that I loved. And like that was like starting to sing again. So I started like my Instagram page and didn't really expect much to go from that. Nothing has. I mean, I don't have very many followers, but kind of like manifesting that and kind of like opening up opportunities, my friend was like, "Hey, you should audition for American Idol." And I was like, "No, like I never make it on those shows. Like those aren't for me." And then I read more into it and it was my last year of eligibility. So I was like, "Okay, why not? Like I'll try it out." So I made it to Nashville, which is where I auditioned. I made it there through the virtual auditions, which I learned that like not a lot of people make it to Katy Perry and Luke Bryan and Lionel Richie through the virtual auditions. A lot of the people are scouted. So
Yes.
I didn't know if that was like something that I should be like really excited about or I'm not gonna lie, it made me a little bit insecure meeting all these people. Like, oh yeah, I was scouted. Like, someone sent me a message because they saw my singing videos and they were like, "Come audition," and I'm like, "Oh well, nothing like that's ever happened to me, but cool. Like, good for you." So that's kind of like my background in a nutshell and how I got to Idol.
I think it is really awesome to be honestly one of the few who makes it completely on your own doing Idol across America. Everyone is so talented regardless of how they got there, but it's wild. I've heard something like 80% are reached out to, and so it's kind of interesting. People are looking around going, "Oh wow, like man, you're one of the few, you know?"
Yeah. Like seriously, I didn't realize that until I had gotten there that that's how so many of the people end up at those auditions is through like social media and being scouted. So It's definitely like the whole thing is very new. It's a very odd experience for me, but I mean, it's the world we live in, I guess. I mean, social media is a huge thing, and if you can find the talent on there, I mean, why go audition, you know? Like the virtual calls.
Let's back up a little bit to your story and the year of doing what you want. And in a time when all of us were sort of looking for that hope, this is just one of the things that you'll do in your lifetime to show people and show your family, your kids, look at me, I can do something for me.
For sure. That was like a big reason why I even like tried out. Was because like I want my kids to see that like I you can still do the things that you love, but you know, it doesn't make me any less of a mom. And I actually told Katy Perry, well, it was actually all the judges during the performance challenge in Hollywood, you know, we were supposed to say why we wanted to be the next American Idol. And I said I wanted to be the next American Idol so I could show my kids that I can be an awesome mom while still following my dreams. And I think that still stands. Like Idol definitely, you know, was a dream of mine since I was a kid to just go and audition. But just because I didn't make it very far doesn't change my love for music. And I think it really like sparked a fire, honestly, to start writing again and start playing the guitar and just kind of focus on that aspect of my life because it's something that I've always been so passionate about. And now I'm at a point, I think, mentally, just in my life where I can put time and energy into that again. Um, Even though my personal life is still just as crazy. I mean, I have a huge family and there's always things happening within my family, but being able to tell like myself and just kind of respect myself in that way of just because like life is hard and people need help, like I still need to fill my cup too. And for me that looks like dedicating time to music.
One of the things about having people that we love is we take care of those that we love. And it's
Yes.
emotional. I'm sure that writing is a very personal thing for you and at times maybe even a private thing. But would you say that that's something that you put into your music is everything that you've been through?
For sure. Looking back at what I've written in the past, and even kind of my mindset when I write today, it's about just my experiences and it's more so like the thought process going through those experiences and the way that I felt. Like when I was 16, I when my dad was in his car accident, I wrote a song called More Than What Meets the Eye. And it was really just it's about life like just being hard and it was about like perspective, like life is hard but it's all about how you get through the hard times that makes it easier to get through those hard times. Like it's all about your perspective and your mindset. And looking back, I was actually thinking about that song and I'm like, man, I can't believe like I wrote those words as a 16-year-old and then seeing some 16-year-olds today and I'm like, man, like I was pretty mature for my age, you know, back in the day. I was like, wow, like, am I tooting my own horn or was I just totally in a different mindset? And I really was. Like, I was a mother to 6 kids at 16. Like, I didn't have a choice. And I have disabled siblings too. So it wasn't just, and we were homeschooled. So it's not like I'm just shuffling them off to school. I am homeschooling them and taking them to their therapy appointments and doing my own schooling too and taking care of my dad. So but and then today it's like I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and my music today is more so just reflecting on that. It's like it's acknowledging that, and I think acknowledging the hardships is actually helping me get through a lot of the stuff that I've been through, and just kind of processing a lot of it. So yeah, music is definitely it's very personal, but I have found over the years that like sharing my experiences actually also helps me to get through them. So I like to like build relationships and connect with other people. And I find that I'm a person who shares, I'm quick to share my story.
Yes. And everybody has a story, which is probably so fascinating for you as it is for everyone who sort of lives in their own little bubble. Literally everybody, no matter where they came from to get to American Idol, that's one of the things that I find so cool about it. No matter if you were scouted or you tried out yourself, you're all located in different places, you live your own lives, and all of a sudden you come together and everybody's been through so many different things, so many different ages and perspectives, cultures, ethnicities. There's just so much to learn from people, right? Not even from a musical sense, just from a personal sense. What was that like to arrive in Nashville and meet so many different kinds of people?
Oh my gosh. So I remember arriving, like the first day arriving, we had a room set up at the hotel just for like contestants to kind of go and hang out. And I heard music in the lobby and I was like, oh, that those gotta be people here for auditions, you know? And I just like went in and saw some people like playing the guitar and singing. First, I was instantly intimidated because I was like, holy cow, these guys are really good. I'm not that good. Like I'm so out of my element here. But I got to like meet more people and spend more time with them. I mean, it's just instantly like I just felt like we have this really cool idol family. And it was just so neat to be with people who have a love for music at the same level that I do, if not more, and to see their talents and to just kind of like pick their brains and figure out, you know, what's their creative style and how do they, you know, the way that they work, like why is music important to them? And it was just so cool. I mean, truly, like it was such a unique experience. I've never been around so many people that were so musically talented and gifted, but also kind and like really everyone just wanted to be there and like have fun and make friends. Like, sure, getting a golden ticket was like what we were there for, but truly the golden ticket is just such a small part of a musician's journey of their lives. And it's just it's a small piece to my story too, but truly I think meeting everyone and building those relationships, like I think having those connections will take me further in my music than had I even made it further in Hollywood or on the show.
Can you tell me about some of the friendships that you made in Nashville?
I think like my two I shouldn't say favorite, but they are my favorite, is Kevin John and Sarah Snyder. And they were just the two people that I completely gravitated towards in Nashville. And it was so easy. Like the conversations were just so easy. And when we went to Hollywood, Kevin and I were like, we should be duet partners. Like if we make it to duets, we should be duet partners. Well, I didn't make it to duets, but it was just like so easy to talk to them. And like I'm already planning trips to go visit like both of them. Kevin lives in Nashville and Sarah is in California, but Kevin's like, just come down whenever. But it's hard to get into the States from Alaska. And when you have a family, it's expensive. And I have two kids that I have to take care of. So it's easier said than done. But I mean, those were like the two people that I gravitated towards the most. But like McKinley Brown, her family, I call them Idols family, Idol season 21's family, because we got to meet her parents in Nashville, and then her mom was in Hollywood with her. And I mean, truly, like, what a special group of people. Like, I think I think they probably like having those relationships with them and meeting them and like having the experience of like getting to know them probably changed, like made the largest impact on me. I think that out of the whole experience, there was a night in Nashville when everyone was playing in the room, um, and they just started singing and playing Christian music, and everyone gravitated towards that corner of the room because everyone knew the song, and we just all started singing, and there's cameras out and recordings, and it was just like a really incredible moment. And like people who are not afraid, they're so inclusive and so accepting, but also not afraid to like share their faith. And it was just so refreshing to meet people like that. You just kind of like you gravitate towards them, and it was just really, really special. Like I can say I have friends all over the country now, and it's super cool. Actually, I have a funny story. I went to Belize a couple months ago. My husband and I just stumbled upon a bar, like a restaurant, and there was some live music. And the guy was so good. I believe his name is Gabe Walsh. And I was like, hey, like, you're so good. I introduced myself, kind of talked about American Idol a little bit. And I was like, hey, what's your Instagram? I want to follow you. And then I realized that we were following some mutual people. And he's like, how do you know? It was actually John Wayne Hatfield. He's like, how do you know John Wayne Hatfield? I'm like, oh, we were on American Idol together. And it was just like instant, like I'm in Belize and just music has just like connected such a small, like specific group of people. And it was just like incredible. It's like, wow, I think I could go anywhere almost, and someone is going to know someone from music.
Oh my goodness. Wait, so Gabe was on Idol, or he just knew John Wayne?
He just knew John Wayne. So he
Okay.
wasn't on Idol, but I was just like, I want to follow your socials. Like, what are they? And then he's like, wait, how do you know this guy? And I was like, wait a minute. So it's just mutually. Yeah, it was crazy.
I want to know what happened to you when you walked into the audition room, what your experience was meeting the judges. And there's so much too when it comes to getting interviewed and B-roll that I want to hear about. But I'm so curious about your moment with your audition.
So like I said, I didn't know what to expect walking into that audition room. Like, no idea. And but I did tell myself that I was not taking no for an answer. Like I flew from Alaska to Nashville. It's my only year to do it because I've aged out, so I can't do it again. So I was like, I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm gonna fight for this. So I walk into the room and Catie asked like, tell us where you're from, what's your name, whatever. And so I was like, I'm Veronica Hoxie. I'm 29 years old from Eagle River, Alaska. And Luke immediately was like, Alaska? I thought AK was Arkansas. And I'm like, nope, like Alaska. I was like, and I flew all the way here from Alaska and I'm not taking no for an answer. Like, and I said that at the beginning. And I think Catie said something along the lines of like, oh wow, like you're pretty confident, you better be good. And a little small talk there. And I gave them a little bit of a snapshot of like my story about my dad and my family and stuff. And then I sang Joanne by Lady Gaga. And the lyrics are, girl, where do you think you're going? And the song kind of ended like that. And Catie immediately, she's like clapping and at the edge of her chair, like smiling, I was like, okay, she likes it. Yay. And she looks over at Luke and she's like, Luke, where do you think this girl's going? And instantly I was like, oh my gosh, they loved it. Like, he's going to say Hollywood. And he was like, I don't know. I didn't quite feel the emotion throughout the song that I wanted to feel. And he was like, he's like, I almost stopped you at the beginning to have you start in a higher key because it did start pretty low in the beginning. And I was really nervous. So, it's hard to sing when you're nervous sometimes. But he kind of, he was hesitant. And so I was like, like thinking to myself, I'm not taking no for an answer. So I was like, all right, let me sing you my second song. And Catie was like, wait, what is your second song? Like, don't ruin this. And I was like, it's I Remember You by Skid Row. And Luke was like, oh yeah, I know that song. And he was like, I remember you. And I was like, no, that's not the one. And he's like, yes, it is. And I'm like, no, it's not. And I was going to accompany myself on the guitar. And so the production staff, they were bringing me my guitar. And Catie was like, wait, are you a great guitarist? And I said, not really. I'm self-taught. She's like, don't play. Have Fredley play on the piano. Well, Fredley and I didn't practice this song together because I was going to play the guitar if I had to play it. Well, I was like, okay. And so the production guy, he was walking off with my guitar, and Luke was like, wait, give me that. And he takes my guitar and he starts playing, and he's like, what are the chords? And I was like, G. And he starts singing again, and he's very like, this is the song, and he's like, I remember you. And I was like, that's not the song, Luke. And he's like, come on now, like sing. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sing. And he was playing the wrong song. And Catie was just like, Luke, will you quit it? You sound awful. Like, just stop. And I was like, whatever. This is my opportunity to shine. So I'm just going to keep singing through the chaos. And I got to the chorus, and Luke realized that he was singing the wrong song. And so he stopped playing, and Fredley got on the piano. And I was like, all right, Fredley, let's just do the chorus and the bridge, and we'll call it good. And so we finished the song, and Catie was like, I love it. Like, it was really pretty. And Luke was like, I was wrong. he's like, what song was I thinking of? And he was thinking of I'll Be There For You by Bon Jovi,
Huh.
not I Remember You by Skid Row. And it was just super funny. And I was like, yeah, Luke, you were wrong and I'm right. And Catie was like, oh, whoa, like put the claws away. And he's like, only my wife talks to me that way. And I'm like, well, I have a husband. I know how to talk to a husband. Just giving him so much crap, like probably way too much attitude, honestly. And she's like, whoa, whoa. Catie was like, whoa, whoa, like back off. She's like, he said he changed his mind. And Lionel stood up and he was just like, anyone who tells Luke Bryan that he's wrong is going to Hollywood in my book. I'm like, yes, like so Luke told me I changed his mind, and he did say, and I'll always remember this, he said I have a pure angelic voice, which I thought was a huge compliment from coming from Luke Bryan. But again, it just came back to like the emotion side of things. He wanted to feel something when I sang, which I agree to something that I'm working on as an artist. At least when I sing covers of songs, it's hard to like for me to connect with the lyrics sometimes if I don't write them myself. But that was my audition in a nutshell. I thought it was pretty chaotic. And Catie said, anyone who can make it through that sort of chaos is going to Hollywood. And she's like, you earn this. So that was really cool. I was really bummed that they didn't air it because I thought that it was really funny. But as I've been watching this season, a lot of the auditions were pretty chaotic. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like, it was so funny. And then like, even they're like, go get your golden ticket. And I was running off the stage to, it's a little like lifted platform in the room. And I tripped on the lip of the stage and like twisted my ankle. I didn't fall all the way over, but I obviously tripped. I was like, this is so embarrassing. They were like, whoa, whoa, don't hurt yourself before you go to Hollywood. And it was just like, it was so fun. It was so unique. But I mean, I don't know. My husband even asked me, he's like, would you have changed anything? And I don't think that matters if I would or would not have changed anything. It was my experience. And I got 3 yeses, but like, had I not gotten 3 yeses, I think I would have changed the song that I sang. But
Hmm.
it is what it is.
It sounds like you had fun and you had no
Yeah.
trouble fighting for your place in the competition. As far as just kind of being on TV too, you had never had any television experience, so you really didn't fumble under the pressure at all. You just were like, let's do this. We're here. You came out all this way. You were into it.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, I think like my experience in pageantry really helped me there
Okay,
because
true.
like being on stage, I'm used to being on stage and being in front of people. And hearing stories from other contestants from the days past because I auditioned on the very last day. And just kind of hearing their audition stories, and I'm like, okay, like I need to fight for this. I need to be a little aggressive, and kind of show them that I'm like that I want this. So I went in there like fully prepared to fight. So, and I shared that a lot in my like interviews with behind the scenes interviews and stuff. And so when I got to Hollywood, they were like, you said in Nashville that you were going to fight for it. Are you going to fight for it here if you get told no? And I'm like, how would I do that? Like with the performance challenge,
Oh
like have
God,
what?
go
Would I just
back.
like step up and be like, I do not accept this. I am not going home. Like, I don't know. Like,
It
no.
sounded pretty convincing right there. There was definitely quite a bit of drama that we saw as viewers in Hollywood Week, so it certainly would have added if you had a contestant, Veronica Hoxie, stepping forward and refusing to accept her defeat.
I know, right? I honestly think I would have done something like spoken up, but I was so sick the day of the performance challenge. Like I was questioning if I could even like make it another day. I had a really
Oh,
bad fever, sore throat. I mean, it was just the worst timing. And then of course my husband and kids at home had the flu and the same weekend. And so I knew like I had caught something. But had I felt better, I think I would have stirred some drama.
you got to do what you got to do, you know?
I know. I mean, I had one shot. Like, I can't go back.
Yes. Would you ever do another one of these shows like America's Got Talent with no age limit or any something like that?
I've tried, like, for The Voice so many times, and they just don't like me because I've never made it past the first initial screening. So I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely like open-minded to it. I think it'd be fun, but sometimes like the rejection just kind of gets to be a lot. But I think I just kind of told myself before I try and really pursue another show like this, I really want to kind of define myself as an artist first, and I really want to get some music out. I actually bought myself like a recording studio equipment that I need to learn how to use. Because like I really just I want to dedicate more of my life to this, and I'm learning that one, it's expensive, and two, it's very time consuming. So I'm gonna focus more on like my artistry and my music, I think, before I really pursue another show.
Do you think this desire to really get deeper into the music was as strong before Idol, or did Idol really propel you even more?
It's kind of hard to say. My love for music has always been there, but I really think Idol did ignite that fire in me to start writing again. And I'm not a very good guitar player. I'm self-taught, and like I said, I didn't play for years, and just within the last couple months I started to pick it up again. And like Idol like gave me that desire to do that. And I don't think I would have gotten there without that experience. So I'm so grateful for the experience, even though it was pretty short-lived for me. It really ignited that fire. Even Katy Perry actually said something in an interview recently about how, these contestants like go home and with all of this ambition and desire to like become greater artists or become better at what they're doing. And I think it's so true. I mean, it's very true for me.
And I feel like being around the contestants is probably something that Idol does more of than the other shows in the sense of, you've got the holding room and the auditions, and then in Hollywood Week, you're sitting in the audience watching everybody perform. They really bring you all together to sort of witness it as opposed to just putting you in a room backstage by yourself. You get to actually experience the music from everybody at once.
Yeah, you get to be around all of that, and it's just very encouraging, especially if like music is something that you've always loved or is important to you. Being around people who feel the same way, it's very encouraging. I didn't get to stay a lot for my experience was cut so short. So I was row 2 on day 1 for the performance challenge, and there were 2 days
Okay.
of performance challenges. So I'm so bummed. Like I'm like, I don't mind being cut. Like people have to go home. But I was like, could I have just stayed longer? Um, but so I got to see Malik perform. He and I were
Hmm.
actually in the same row for the performance challenge, and just incredible. And Isaiah I think his last name is Hart, Isaiah Hart. They did not air him, and I'm shocked that he didn't make it past the performance challenge because he is incredible. Like he is ready to do this for a living. Like his level of talent is insane. And the feedback that he got was like, you just need to take it down a notch. And I'm like, why does he need to take it down? Like this is amazing. And then there was Dylan. I think his name is Dylan. He was one of the minors. And he like did this like performance. I think it was a song he wrote, and he like tapped his foot. He was wearing cowboy boots, like really loud. So it's just like extra music. It was so cool. Honestly, from what I did get to see, I think I saw 4 or 5 rows perform. The minors were the most impressive. They were absolutely incredible. Like hands down, some of the most talented people in the entire competition were the minors. I didn't even get to sit in the audience because I was so early and was eliminated so quickly. So I was like on the other side of the auditorium waiting to go on stage where they aren't filming. That's the only experience I have in the auditorium was waiting to go sing. Which sucks. Like I'm okay like being sent home, like whatever, it sucks, but I just wanted to be there a little bit longer.
Now, did you meet any of the alumni mentors before the performance challenge?
I did actually. I had a mentor session with Katie Turner.
Oh, cool. I want to hear about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that was it was so funny. So like I said, I was not feeling good. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who I was meeting. And I go in, and of course, it's Katie. And we sit down, we get to chit chat a little bit, and then, she's like, I want to hear your song. And I'm like, okay. I was not expecting to sing. So I start singing. I was saying The One That Got Away by Katy Perry for the performance challenge. And I forgot the lyrics during my mentor session. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot the lyrics. And Katie was like, don't worry, I forgot the lyrics on Ida one time too, and I got eliminated. And I was like, don't
Don't.
say
Oh
that.
God.
It's like,
I remember that watching. That was on the live round when that happened.
yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I am getting eliminated tomorrow. Like, we're done. So that was hilarious. But I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. But she gave me some really good feedback. Again, it kind of went back to like I did the songwriting challenge. And I did that because of Luke's feedback was, he wanted to feel more emotion. And the songwriting challenge wasn't just about writing your own songs. It's also about like being able to connect to the lyrics of songs that other people sing. So a lot of times, these big artists are singing these songs that they didn't write. So, but they have to, give a performance like it's their own words. And so I chose that challenge, the songwriting challenge, to help me be able to better connect with the lyrics that I was singing to. And Katie, gave a lot of really good feedback. One of the things that I remember the most is she was like, singing is kind of like, it's like a wave. Like you're giving it a little bit, but then you're pulling back. And she's like, then you're giving a little bit more, but then you're pulling back. And it's knowing the right times to give and pull back. And so that was some of the advice that she gave me. And it really resonated with me. I just remember singing on stage and being like, okay, I'm going to give right here, but I'm going to take it back a notch, keep them wanting more. But yeah, it was really funny though. It was a great session. It was super cool to meet her. She's super quirky, kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of a quirky person. So it was just cool to like get to hang out with someone who's like around the same age, has a love for music, isn't afraid of like being herself. So it was really cool.
So that you mentioned that feedback Katie gave you about waves, was that during Hollywood Week that you got that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I asked that because I always thought, at least from what they show on TV, maybe to just cut it. Usually the contestant sings in the first round with no immediate feedback from the judges. Do they talk to you and they just don't show it on TV?
The mentor sessions are done before, the performance challenge. And you get your feedback there. You don't get feedback from the judges during the performance challenge. You just sing and you walk off.
Was it Katie Turner that said the wave comment or Katy Perry? I think I got it mixed up.
Oh, it was Katie Turner.
Oh, okay. That's why I was like, because usually I was like the judges, they don't give you like the full critiques after the performance challenge.
Yeah. It was actually funny though, but going back to Katy Perry, the moment that like you go on stage during the performance challenge and you say, your name, where you're from, what you're singing, why you want to be the next American Idol. And I made the comment about, being an awesome mom and following my dreams. And she just kind of mouthed to me, asked me again how many children I have. And she goes, do you have 4 kids? She couldn't remember. And I just said, no, I have 2. And she goes, oh, and gave me a big smile. And you could just tell that like, even in my audition, Lionel and Katie talked about, how Katie's like a mother and loves, like it's one of her most favorite jobs. And then being in Hollywood, like you could like talking about, me having kids, and she's like, awesome. Like it's just really cool. It's kind of a bummer how the media has kind of twisted things with her comments with another contestant. But in my experience, I think that she just really does love being a mom, and I think she's really supportive of other mothers. And it was just cool to like be in front of someone who's so successful in the music industry, who is a mom, and like she wanted to make sure that like, at least for me in my experience, that she gave that support too, like just even like a head nod of like, you're doing a good job, mom, like good for you. It was encouraging. And I'm not the kind of person who necessarily will like have a star-struck moment of like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it was really neat.
So you get eliminated and they want to get it all on camera.
Yeah.
Tell me about the moment, because it's captured. I mean, it's there, of course, you see it, and you don't have the footage, but what do you remember about them interviewing you as soon as you walk off stage? And then you walk off stage, you walk out of the theater, there's more cameras. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. So in that moment, I wasn't emotional beforehand, but in that moment I became very emotional. And I think because I was just so sick and so tired. Um, but I just the first camera walking out of the auditorium, I couldn't even say anything. I was just instant tears. And they were just like, it's okay, like go to the next point. And so I went to the next camera and I don't remember the producer's name, but he's just so kind. And I remember him asking me, like, how are you feeling? Do you think the singing a Katy Perry song in front of Katy Perry was a mistake? And which, yes and no. But I think in the moment I said, no, like I was really confident in what I sang, but I was just like, for me, I knew I didn't give the performance that I wanted to give because I was so sick. Like I faked it as much as I could, but at the end of the day, like my vocal abilities weren't there because I was so sick. But I was just like crying and he's like, you did this for your kids, right? And I was like, well, yeah, I did this to show my kids that like I can follow my dreams too and like still be an awesome mom and just like this is what it looks like to take care of yourself as a parent. And I remember just crying because I missed my kids. And my daughter broke her collarbone the day we got back from Nashville, which was 2 weeks before we went to Hollywood. And so my 2 weeks to prepare for Hollywood were spent taking care of a toddler with a broken bone and doctor's appointments. And then she got RSV on top of that. And so it was a really different experience for me than it was for a lot of other people who don't have kids or didn't have kids that broke a bone. So I didn't get to like put as much, effort into my performances as I had wanted to. Um, and I kind of talked about that in that post, exit interview. And yeah, it was very emotional. Um, I like, of course, I was crying through the whole thing, but yeah, I think I got all my tears out there. And then I went home or went back to the hotel and just like fell on the bed. I was like, I'm so tired. Like, it was so sad, but it was such a relief too, because I was so sick. I was just like very relieved. I immediately like washed my face, threw my hair up, put on my sweats because you have to wear the same clothes for days through the filming. So I'm like, get me out of these clothes. Like, I'm done.
Did you have a moment where you just said to yourself, like, I'm proud of me, like where you were able to finally just be like, I mean, it was so stressful and you were so sick, but you did the thing. You did it.
It's funny that you ask that because I had a really hard time for the first like week or two, I think, immediately following getting home. Like mentally, just I felt like, a failure. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I should have done more. I felt like, it was just kind of one of those moments of like, why can't good things happen to me? And I know that sounds kind of like it's a victim mentality, but and I don't think like that all the time. I think it's just under that stress. But like, I've been through a lot in my life and I haven't lived very long. And it was just kind of a defeating moment. I think that's the best way to describe it. It was just very defeating. Um, but being able to like come out of all of that, how I got out of that was like starting to write again and starting to put songs together again. And that's kind of when I realized like, okay, you know what? Like trying to find the positives, the good things that came out of it. Because I think that was my question for so long. It was like, why go through this? Why go through this huge experience and not even be, shown on TV or not even make it through at least the first round or whatever. It's kind of all these like whys. But being able to look back, I'm like, this was a super cool experience. 150,000 people auditioned for this season and 150 people made it to Hollywood. And so like putting it into perspective like that, like I am able to be like, wow, like go me, like I did that, and it was super cool. And I mean, at the end of the day, you always have these shoulda, coulda, woulda moments, but at the end of the day, like I'm very proud of the fact that I did that and was able to do that.
I think a lot of people probably can relate to struggling with anything and just wondering when am I going to get that break, right? And so it's going to come. You really are a star just to do that alone and to have the talent and to have everything ahead of you in your future, clearly being so gifted as to make it that far. It's like everything's only up from here.
Yeah, for sure. You have to put things into perspective like that. And My husband was like, he's like, he didn't understand why my experience was affecting me so negatively for a while. And not that I don't think he ever will understand, but more so like, because you only know if you go through it. And I mean, it was a huge learning experience too, but just to be able to like say, I did that and, it is something to be proud of and not be so hard on yourself because we are so hard on ourselves like all the time. As a society, we're just, you know, constantly like we're our worst critics. So I'm at a point now where I can be like, yep, I did that. It was awesome, regardless of how far I did or did not go.
You should go on more podcasts because you're so inspiring and I love your energy and I love the way you describe things.
Thank you. It's so funny. Um, just like another quick story. During my rehearsal for the performance challenge, my accompanist, I believe his name is Dave. He's Alanis Morissette's music director, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I know he works with Alanis Morissette. So anyway, I go into my audition room and he's asking me, what's my name, where I'm from, and I just start telling my whole story. And he goes, "Screw the rehearsal. I want to hear your podcast."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Hey, if you need to know like what equipment to get, I'm sure all the stuff you already got from music works for podcasting. I'll give
I'm
you
sure
anything you
I
need
just
to
need to figure
know.
out how to use it.
Seriously, Veronica, I really just enjoy your spirit and your positivity. I sound like Paula Abdul from seasons ago of American Idol.
I love it.
I'm in a good mood from talking to you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks. That means so much. I'm really optimistic too. Like 2020 was a really hard year for a lot of people. And like I said earlier, like I had my daughter in January of 2020 and going through like postpartum depression and then just
Mm.
dealing with a newborn. And then she still doesn't sleep. And then and then navigating the world of being a working parent with during a global pandemic when daycares are closing and you work for people who aren't understanding of the fact that daycares are closed because of this global pandemic and you can't just shuffle your kids off to grandma and grandpa's because they've been exposed to COVID and you can't go make people sick. And it was just like I work so hard in everything that I do and I really take pride in that. And it was years of basically just feeling like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't doing enough. It wasn't good enough at what I was trying to do. As far as like, being a professional and being a mom, I constantly felt like I was having to choose between the two. And it was awful. And it just kind of push that sort of mindset shift of like, what am I even doing? Like, what are things that bring me joy? And having to choose between going to the office or being home with my kids because they're sick or whatever, it's just not a good feeling. And kind of like moving beyond that, I started working a full-time remote job and it completely changed our lives. I mean, it was an adjustment in a lot of ways, but in so many ways it was for the best. And it allowed me to like almost like find myself again, like as a professional, as a mom, as an artist. And it's just like I just really hope that by talking with people or even like sharing my story that like I can inspire someone to realize that like your life is kind of like the trajectory of your life is kind of what you make of it. And I could victimize myself and kind of go hide in a hole and be like, I wasn't good enough, so I'm never going to do X, Y, and Z again. But like, I want to keep trying. I want to keep doing things. And we're not promised tomorrow ever. And I want to be someone who I want to live my life in a way that like makes me proud too. So whatever that looks like for anyone, I just hope that like people remember that like, we're not always stuck in the valleys. There's life is full of like valleys and mountaintops. And it's how you get through those valleys, I think, that really set the trajectory of like what comes next.
Yeah.
It's just a huge, yeah, mindset thing.
And you get through it with people and you have so much love in your life. So I'm sure that that's a huge blessing for you too.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, being in a big family has its challenges too, but like you said, there's so much love and yeah, it's just remembering to be grateful for the things that you have and focusing more on what you have and less on what you don't. And I think that will impact your life and your mindset, I think, more than I think people are aware of how it can totally shift your mindset, just focusing on more positivity and less on things that you wished you had or whatever.
You even talk about having a fully remote job. It's like you make those little changes that everything you already have that's so good in your life, you think, oh, well, maybe there's another change I can make to kind of improve things, right? Even more. So it sounds
Right.
like that's something too that's just added to everything to make things better.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's been an adjustment in so many ways, but it's like going back to like what's important in your life. And I think, if I'm at the end of the day, like if I'm on my deathbed, I'm never going to wish that I spent more time in the office. I'm going to wish that I was more present with my children and,
Yes.
gave more energy and time and attention to the things that I loved, things that brought me joy.
As I said, if you want to start your own podcast, I would subscribe right now. I'd be so excited to hear what you would talk about, which makes me wonder, because I wanted to ask this earlier, was trying to figure out where to fit it in. But are there any other tidbits of your American Idol interviews when they were asking you questions, like maybe in your audition or when they were trying to get to know you, like the B-roll or just those kinds of moments, either in Nashville or Hollywood, because those are pretty interesting times when they've got the camera, you're in that room for like 30 minutes and they want to know everything about you, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my that interview, I don't know what they call it, but that's kind of the interview I think where they like really try and get your story out of you.
Confessional.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, the confessional, because it's a long, probably 30 minutes to an hour at least. So lots of tears were shed in there, but after coming out of that, one of the producers, not the one that did the interview, but he was like, yeah, so you've got a lot going on in your life. And I'm like, yep. He's like, well, let's just focus on this part. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. But in there, so we kind of talked about like why I chose to sing the song that I sang actually. Like I sang Joanne and by Lady Gaga. Now I don't know if you're familiar with that song, but she wrote it almost from the perspective, I think, of like her dad, like her aunt, her name was Joanne, and she died when she was really young,
Mm.
when her aunt was really young. And I don't remember what she had, but she was sick. Um, and I kind of like I sang it in memory of a friend of mine who but she committed suicide. She was like a sister to me growing up. And that was kind of a way that I felt like I could honor her. Of course, I wasn't aired at all, but they weren't going to talk about that side of my story anyway. But she was someone that like when I grew up doing pageants, she would like drive me around town to sell advertisements in our program books, which is what we had to do as contestants for like our entry fee. And like she did everything like to support me as an individual. And so that was like why I chose the song that I sang. And talking about that in that interview brought up a lot of emotion. And talking about my dad brought up a lot of emotion. And I've talked about his accident. I didn't talk about the fact that for a large part of my childhood, he was working multiple jobs to try and make ends meet. We were very poor growing up, and my mom had a lot, still does to this day, has a lot of health issues. And just talking about like his work ethic and just kind of seeing him really like shape me into the person that I am today, like watching him, work so hard to provide for our family. And his car accident was devastating. I mean, he wasn't able to go back to work. And this was 13 or 14 years ago now, that this happened. And he's just now like able to start work. He got his real estate license, and he's just started doing real estate with my mom because that's what she does now too. But it took, 14 years for him to be able to like work or do something to provide an income. And his whole identity was being the provider, and having that taken away from him was just devastating. And he still lives in constant pain. The infection that he had from his surgery was in his spine, and it completely ate away, the nerves and around his spinal cord. And he was going septic. He was going septic. Like that's how he almost died. His whole body was infected. And Um, it's just seeing, like, watching him go through that. I was the one that had to call the ambulance when his back seized up and he was so debilitated by the pain. Like, he couldn't move. He was in such horrific pain. And I was home with him and my siblings because my mom was at work. She worked in the oil fields in Alaska, which is like 800 miles north of where we're at. So you have to fly there and you work in week long, multiple 2 week long rotations or what have you. So she was gone and I was the oldest at home. And just like going through that experience of like getting him to the emergency room, finding out he needs emergency surgery. He had to be on an IV pack for 6 months of antibiotics to kill the infection that was in his body. And just watching him have to like rehabilitate, and to just recovering from his accident was heartbreaking. And they're still feeling those effects today, my parents. And then he was diagnosed with cancer 3 days before I gave birth to my daughter. And like the stress of that put me into early labor. Like, these are all things we talk about. Sorry, my dogs. And I just kind of like let it all out on the table. Like, I shared my life story and like everything that has shaped me into the person that I am today. And, you know, I wasn't sharing it in hopes that they would necessarily air it. It was more so just like, it was also very therapeutic for me sharing it. But in the off chance or the small chance that they would show any of that interview, I just would hope that like I know that someone out there can relate to some part of my story, and I just hope that it would like inspire someone to talk about it, because life is hard. Like, everyone is fighting a battle. Everyone is going through something. And the world can be a really, really cruel place. But I think like the more that we share and the more that we can learn about each other and like be there for other people in their times of need, and just know that like you're not alone. Sorry, that was a lot.
I really just admire your strength and everything, your perseverance and who you are and what you've sacrificed. And again, I mean, it all comes back to love, right? Because you love your family and of course you're going to
Yeah.
be there for the people that are going through it. A lot of this stuff is you never are going to just assume that it will happen. But the fact that you just step up, I think, is what's really touching me.
Oh,
And I try to be as objective as I can as an interviewer, and to not that I don't want to be emotionally involved, or not that I don't want you all to understand that I feel connected to who you are as people. But I know, truthfully, you guys spend so much time being on reality TV. Their sole purpose is to try to get an emotional reaction. So I don't want to feel like just another person who is trying to be like, oh, you're so brave, or that must have been so hard. I don't want you to get that vibe from me. I just want you to know that I genuinely feel so inspired by who you are, because it's those kinds of people who give so much to others that I think we all are just so moved by. So I just
well,
can't help
thank
it.
you.
I really, really am touched to get to hear you
Thank
talk
you.
about that. And I appreciate that you're going out there to share that kind of stuff. Even if we haven't been through it ourselves, doing the work that you do day in and day out, we see you, and I want you to know that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And I think it is, like you said, important for people to just be recognized for that too. And thank you for like providing a platform for us to share those stories too. I mean, the one of the beauties of the internet and social media is that it connects a lot of people who probably may have never had their paths cross, and it's a really cool thing. And being able to like share my story like this is super unique and I think really cool. So thank you for allowing me to share.
The truth is, as an artist, probably the purest form for you to share is even just being a musician, and you have so many more stories to tell through music. And before we go, Veronica, I want to give you the chance to talk about anything you might be working on, or what people can look out for as far as
Yeah.
songs you might be releasing, or what you're writing right now, who you might be working with.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had like some really cool, exciting news to share, but I don't. Um, but I am, the music that I'm working on right now is really about like my journey of finding myself again as Veronica, not as not as a daughter, not as a caretaker, a wife, or a mother, but me. And I am still on that journey, and I think a lot of moms can kind of relate to that. It's so easy to lose yourself, especially when you're raising young children, or you are a caretaker for your parents or a loved one. So my music right now that I'm working on is really about that. It's like reflecting on, the days that have passed that have made me the person that I am today. Kind of like acknowledging that, like, yeah, I am living a life that I thought was my dream, but I don't feel like, I'm supposed to. I don't feel like I thought I was supposed to feel when I have a house and a family and a good job. I thought as a kid I would feel like this is it. This is all I ever wanted. But yet I feel like something is still missing. And so my music is that I'm working on right now is about that journey, about that mindset, and kind of like working through those things. I've been working on recording some stuff. My goal is to have a small album out like by the end of the year. So something on Spotify. That is my goal. So I've got a lot of really cool songs that I'm working on right now that like I've been able to show to some people in small groups and I've gotten a lot of really great feedback of just people like thanking me for sharing that message. So I think a lot of people will be able to resonate with what I'm writing and the music that I'm going to release here, hopefully by the end of the year.
Well, where can people follow you to stay tuned for that and anything else that you've got going on?
I share some little snippets of these songs as I work on them too, on my TikTok, which is Veronica Hoxie Music, and my Instagram, which same handle, Veronica Hoxie Music. So if you want to hear little samples of what I'm working on right now, definitely go and follow me there.
If you guys enjoy this conversation, you can follow us as well on Instagram or TikTok at Idle and Nerd Podcast. Make sure that you subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. Veronica, thank you for being a part of American Idol Unaired.
Thank you so much for having me.